So Ken, we've been talking about the threat that both the Obama administration and then later the Biden administration have brought, the 30 by 30 and all of that. There's an economic component, but it's not just electricity rates. It's going to impact us across the board. One other thing you brought up to me was something about 20,000 new, explain that.
Yeah, so part of this 30 by 30 plan and what was in the executive order, the 14008, was what they call the Civilian Climate Corps. FDR had his Civilian Conservation Corps. My grandfather was in that. And they went out and did works projects, out in the mountains and whatever, and built trails and whatnot. Civilian Climate Corps, 20,000 20-somethings out proselytizing the climate change issue.
Wait, they're not clearing trails, they're out to talk to people about the climate issue? Is that their primary?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, right? If you look back in that. So they'll be placed in all the different federal agencies, dispatched out throughout the United States, and it's to basically evangelize the climate alarmism.
Wait, why don't we just do this? Let's pass for 20,000 20-somethings to go out and talk about the life issue and talk about the importance of human life and all that. The Democrats would freak if the Republicans suggested that.
Yeah, well, but again, it comes back to us, right? We've allowed government to centralize. I mean, that's what government does. If you don't check government, it grows. And we've allowed that government to grow and centralize. Now, hopefully on the conservative side, even if we had the president in, we wouldn't use that sort of power run amok. But this is what government does. And I'm not going to excuse even centralized power on the conservative side. We've got to pull that back. And that comes at the state level. But yeah, you now have 20,000 Civilian Climate Corps people. And what they're doing, Kevin, is they've now taken all this land that was locked up, 640 million acres, that mostly is in the western states. They're leasing that to their NGO pals so that they can sell environmental services. If you've sinned too much in your climate score, well, there's absolution for you.
So I drive my SUV too much. I can buy absolution. I send somebody some money. And what you're saying is we're sending it to somebody who's claiming to have leased these lands that the government has locked up, but they were locked up anyway. Why should I have to pay for that?
Yeah, well, why should they be holding them in the first place?
That's a better question,
right?
but yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they had no authority to hold them, but the longer we allow them to hang on to it, they're going to come up with more and more dangerous ideas. And so now, the land that was supposed to be multiple use sustained yield, right? Timber and ranching and harvesting and even recreation, they've now shut off all the land and they're leasing that same land.
But not developing it.
Yeah, no, they call it conservation leasing. So it was like the solemn promise. This land is going to be just as good as if you had it under your control in the state. Multiple use sustained yield was an act that goes back into the 60s, but now they lease it to their NGO pals. They even have the New York Stock Exchange from September of 2021 allowed them to do IPOs for something called a natural asset company. So you take the environmental asset, you tie it up, you do the IPO, and then you sell the environmental services for anyone that, do you know anybody that is trading with the federal government, gets a federal benefit at all? And if their climate score is not exactly right, then they have to buy the climate credits.
They trade with everybody. It's the largest consumer of goods and services on the planet.
Yeah, they even brag, right? It's the world's largest purchaser of goods and services. So now, Kevin, from a timing standpoint, Europe goes live October 1 on what they call their cross-border adjustment mechanism. It's their cap and trade. They actually passed it as a law, right? Congress tried to pass it 3 times. It failed. So this is why they built it completely from administrative regulation,
executive orders.